right, so it's another super foggy, misty day, and I'm filming this from a weird angle, but you know what? That's all right. I'm not a YouTuber. It doesn't matter. Um, so I wanted to talk about what I have been reading slash watching slash listening to in one particular case. So, I guess let's have a look at my e-reader first. I started off the year on, I was like, I remember all these fairy tale retellings that I read as a kid, and I was like, I'm going to reread those. So the first one was Zell by Joanna Jo Napoli. Um, I did not like this. And I remember disliking it as a kid. So it's just like, because it's a Rapunzel retelling, and Rapunzel is like super young and super obsessed with getting married and having babies, even though she's like 14. I don't know. And it was, yeah, I just, I remembered not liking it as a kid, and I was like, I'll reread it as an adult and see if I still dislike it, because I don't always, I don't always keep my same opinion. I did in this case. Then I read Hour of the Witch because somebody on YouTube mentioned it. And uh, what can I say? It was pretty clear this book was written by a man. So I didn't hate it, but neither did I like it. I think there are better books written about this time period. Um, I'm not sure what they are right now, but like this one was not that special. Um, so I read that one, and then after that, I was like, you know what? Slewfoot. Like, let's see if this comes up to the cover. Yes. Okay. So Slewfoot, this one everybody's been talking about for like forever. It's been on, it's been recommended over and over and over again. And I was like, okay, well, I read Hour of the Witch, and because Hour of the Witch is more like um it's more like a legal drama, because it does include, some court documents from an actual case, I'm pretty sure, that happened in the 1600s. Anyway, this is more like, I was like, oh, well, I want something that has more of the actual supernatural fantasy elements in it. This was, you guys, this wasn't very good. It wasn't very good. What is everybody so excited about? I mean, that's what I get for reading, something that's popular and super recommended, but I did not, it was nothing new. There was no subtlety to it. It's just like, oh, she meets, spoilers obviously, but she meets an old forest god, and then she's like, no, you can't kill my super evil brother-in-law, when all of her problems would have been solved if she had just let her forest friend go kill this guy. It felt so, I had really high expectations for it being, something so unusual and new, and it actually felt like really juvenile, you know? Like, all the townspeople are evil, and then they go and kill all of them, and then she lives happily ever after, the end. And I was like, what? Like, I mean, not all the townspeople were evil. Like, there's no complication here. There's no interesting, like, real story or conflict. Of course, the devil or whatever that she meets in the forest is her friend. Like, obviously, we have like one tiny creepy, couple of chapters in the very beginning when we don't know yet, but then after that, it's like, and this was also, I was like, clearly written by a man, because she has the long red hair, and it was just like, ah, like I said, also clearly written by a man, like Hour of the Witch, and I had high expectations, and then, like I said, it was just so, to me, it was so unsubtle. Like, okay, now this is gonna happen, and now this is gonna happen. Of course she's friends with the like I said, the forest god or whatever, and now they're gonna kill everybody. the end. And it was like, what? Yeah, no subtlety, no, it was weird. I'm saying I'm not going to not read other books by this author because I think it might still be a fun read. I guess I'm just not going to go in with as high expectations, you know? Okay, hello. Yeah, let's see. What did I read after that? Oh, after that, I read Lady Macbeth. So this one I found also on YouTube because somebody made an entire video about Lady Macbeth and the problem with retellings, blah, blah, blah. And I've been, you know, reading and thinking something about these feminist retellings that have gained popularity or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, I definitely didn't dislike it as much as some of the reviews seem to. Yeah, I didn't hate it, but I wasn't particularly impressed with it either. But at least it wasn't like, ugh, clearly a man wrote this, you know? You know what? It's like, not much happens in it, and it's kind of, I felt like it was less of a Macbeth retelling. Like, why did it need to be Macbeth? You know, it could have been a Bluebeard or Blackbeard or whatever. What's the story about the guy who's like murdered all his wives and then the one young wife is not supposed to go behind the door with the key? You know what I'm talking about? Is that Bluebeard or Blackbeard? I don't remember. It could have been a retelling of that, and it would have made more sense. Like, we didn't need to have, like, what did it have to do with Macbeth except for the names of the characters, basically? So fair enough if you're upset by that. And I do, like, I get it, because Lady Macbeth certainly has some agency in the initial story. So anyway, yeah, I didn't hate it. I didn't like it very much either. Not much to say about that. I do really like the cover, I have to say. I'm a sucker for the gothic font in hot pink over a painting. Yeah. It might be cheesy, might be basic, but you know what? Like I said, I like it. So we can say that for it. Let's see. What else? Okay, then I read a couple of short horror. So this was like a Snow White retelling. Like I said, I was on a fairy tale retelling kick, which was, it was fine. I mean, how much can you do in like 30 pages? There's not like a lot going on there. Same with this one. This was a little bit like, okay, it was nice and creepy, and then it just kind of ends, which I get it. You want to write a short story or whatever, fine, okay. It does make me want to read some more horror, though, I think. I periodically get on a little bit of a horror kick, and I always prefer horror written by women. Like, I guess that's the other thing about Slewfoot that I was thinking about. I was like, a lot of times this sort of story would not really go into it. You know, it would be like, oh no, I can't kill the super evil guy because that would also be bad. And so, fair enough. I like that she does actually go around and kill the super evil guy. But sure, fair enough. But it just didn't really, yeah, like I said, it was a total lack of subtlety and realism. It just didn't feel very realistic. Like, also a lot of like what the characters say, I'm like, I don't think they would have said that in that time period, you know, this sort of thing. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, so I read some short horror. I read this one. This is so this is nonfiction. This is a collection. Well, it's kind of like essays, but not really. Like, each chapter is sort of on a different theme. I also found this one through YouTube, but I found this really interesting. It was a really quick read, and it was really interesting to me to like think about, um, yeah, how the pandemic affected us and that sort of thing. So that one was pretty good. I liked that. Let's see. Oh, this one, Keturah and Lord Death. I remember liking that one when I was a teenager, and I'm reading it now, and I'm also really enjoying it now. You know, it's like, it's very stereotypical, but it's like before the big trend of paranormal fairy tale romance or whatever. So it's actually well written. And it's just like, it's just a very nice little book. It's exactly what it says on the tin. I feel like it's nicely written. You get a nice sense of place, and you really get, you know, like the creepiness of the coming plague and la la la. I like it. I enjoyed it as a kid and I'm enjoying it now. Very nicely done. That makes me want to read more things by that author. Like I said, it's one of those books that it's like, it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's kind of like a fairy tale retelling, and the whole book is quite short, is very fairy tale-esque, you know, very fairy tale feeling. She has to come up with, you know, she has to do these tasks in a certain amount of time, and the plague is coming, blah blah blah. So of course she's gonna solve it in the end, and it's gonna have a happy ending, whatever. But I'm enjoying it anyway. I'm reading it slowly. From Lukov with Love is still on my e-reader. I'm thinking about deleting it actually, because I have had it on there for more than a year and I've still only read 14%. Like, I can't. I'm trying to read, because this is contemporary. It's contemporary. It's a contemporary romance. It's what everybody else is reading. And so my cousins were like trying to get me to read that sort of thing. And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a try. And this one is about, you know, figure skaters, but oh, it's so hard to read. You know, like the way I'm like, I don't want to read about modern people who act stupid. Like, it's just really annoying. And then I think I've said this before, because I've talked about reading this book before, and it's like, you know, I'm not a hardcore figure skater, but I know what all of those things are. So it's really obnoxious to be like, and then I did a Salchow jump, which is what you do, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, stop. Like, it's so... Yeah, I probably should just get rid of that book. Okay, and then the thing that I read that I really enjoyed was North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. So last year I did a reread of all of Jane Austen's works, and I read, like, what is it? Lady Susan for the first time. I still haven't read Sanditon. I would like to, I know it's unfinished, but I would like to read that eventually. Anyway, I did a reread of Jane Austen's works, and then I was like, and I have this one on my e-reader because for some reason I could not find it in our library system. That doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have it, but they are switching over the computer system and, you know, like their website and their computer system and everything, and it is a fucking disaster, and I hate it so much, and I hate that they're doing that, and I hate that they're renovating the Central Library again. Anyway, yeah, so I read North and South. I really enjoyed this. The thing was, is after I did my reread of all of Austen's works, I was like, well, you know what, I should read the Bronte sisters, because I am pretty sure that I have read Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre before. Wuthering Heights, I couldn't really remember anything about it. Jane Eyre I remember enjoying. So I reread Wuthering Heights and I was like, I'm sorry, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, I talked about this in another video. I don't get why Wuthering Heights is some people's favorite. It's not a particularly rereadable one to me. Like, you know, when I'm reading North and South, I'm like, I can totally reread this. And then when I read Jane Eyre, I enjoyed it so much. And as I was reading it, I was already thinking, oh my gosh, I should reread this like every year or so. Um, and I will enjoy it so much, you know? And Wuthering Heights, I'm just like, oh my God, these people suck. Oh my God, this is so like, and they're all stuck in the same place, and it's so, and you know, and she's stuck in the same place in this one too. And you know, in Jane Eyre, she's often, well, no, she moves around a little more in Jane Eyre, but it's like, ugh, can't you people go somewhere else and do something else? You know? And it's like, oh, Heathcliff, villain or victim. Yeah, he sucks. Like, he's the villain. I'm glad he died. I watched a YouTube video about why his death is anticlimactic, which I totally agree with. But I don't know. I just don't get Wuthering Heights. It's not. It's not my favorite. It's down there on the list. Anyway, so I read North and South. I really enjoyed North and South, and the funny thing is a lot of I was reading this a lot when I was in England over like Christmas, New Year's time, visiting family, and we were like going to the museums and seeing the machinery and stuff. I love reading that like matches what I am eating or doing at the time. So like I read Persuasion, that kind of kicked off my reread. I read Persuasion because I was on a sailboat and I was sailing the boat up the coast with my boyfriend and his family. And I was like, oh, but aren't they sailors in Persuasion? I'll reread Persuasion while we're on the boat. Yeah, stuff like that. So I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed reading this while I was in England and that sort of thing. So yeah, anyway, on my list to read for this year I started reading The Tenant of Wildfell Hall last year. I never read that one. So that's on my list. That one I do know. I've seen the physical copy. I've had it, and it's actually at the library that I can walk to. So that one I'll definitely have a physical copy of. There's also Agnes Grey, which I don't know anything about. I need to read that one. There's also Wives and Daughters, also by Elizabeth Gaskell. I'm pretty sure that one is in the library. And then once I get through all of those, or maybe simultaneously, I also want to read Fredrika Bremer, because she is hailed as sort of like the Swedish Jane Austen. And of course, all of her books are at the library. I just need to figure out like where I should start with them. You know, I actually got a little confused. I had Wives and Daughters on my list of things to read, and then for some reason I thought it was Bremer who had written that one, that it was like, because I'd seen it translated to Swedish so many times, and I think they did a Swedish TV series of it as well, or maybe I've just seen the DVD that like with Swedish text or something. Anyway, so those are my plans for that. Physical books. I have read some physical books this year. I'm seriously gonna have to look at my list of what I read to remember. That's embarrassing. Okay, so I'll pause and come back. But what I'm reading right now, physical books, is this one. So this is totally, you know, I don't like contemporary literature, basically, generally at all. I don't like reading about people currently. I read XOXO a couple years ago because my friend, who also is like not into this type of read at all, was like, it's so good. And I read it and it was so enjoyable. It was so fun, and it had such a great sense of place. I think that's what I love most. I love the sense of place. I love like the food descriptions. So good. I'm like, I want to hang out in, you know, New York or in Seoul or whatever, and where they're like hanging out and they're okay, my phone storage is running out. I looked and realized that I have only read digital books this year, aside from ASAP, and this one I got for Christmas. So this is The Nature We Inherited. So it seems like it would be super depressing, but because it's like from an environmental trip or travel from quiet springs to hot summers. So it sounds like it should be super depressing, but it's actually, I don't know, it manages not to be. It's more about the interaction of like how cities have grown with nature and what Sweden has done to try and protect the nature around them and like how we see it and that sort of thing. And there's lots of photographs in it, and yeah, it's really enjoyable. So this is like yeah, it's split up. It starts in the 80s, I'm pretty sure. Or is it earlier? What? Oh no, it starts in the 60s. Okay. But I've been reading, you know, I haven't read it like from the start. I have read like a little bit here and there, but this I will definitely, I got this from my boyfriend's grandma. She always gives me a book, and this is one of my favorites out of the ones that I've gotten. I'm really enjoying it. So there's that. And then other than that, I guess I have only been reading digital books, which is kind of crazy for me. But yeah, really? Like, is that really possible? I guess I was gone the first week of January, so I've really only been here for like 2.5 weeks. And haven't had the chance to, I mean, I did get a couple things that I requested from the library. Anyway, what have I been listening to? So I finished listening to The Moonflower Murders by Anthony Horowitz. I did actually think that was really fun. That's what I've been listening to on my walks in the woods. And I also finished listening to Grimoire's Hemlighet, which is the second book in this Swedish YA series that I've been reading that has been, or I mean, I read the first book, but then obviously the second book just came out, so I couldn't get a hold of a paper copy unless I bought it, and I don't usually buy books. Anyway, so yeah, really looking forward to the third one of that one. That was super fun. And watching, let's see, I used to keep a like paper list of what I've been reading and watching, and I think I decided at some point to not do that anymore. I don't know. So it's digital now. Yeah, it's digital now. So I'll have to go and look. But I will say that I have been watching Star Trek again. You know, Star Trek is like my number one favorite TV show of all time, basically. And by that, I mean specifically 90s Star Trek. So not the latest stuff, not the earliest stuff, the stuff that's kind of in the middle of the whole thing, right? And it's just so enjoyable. And even though I've seen those episodes multiple times, like Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, I still enjoy it so much. It's still so enjoyable to sit down and watch an episode of Star Trek. So I have been doing that, partially in my attempt to reduce time spent on screens, you know, is to, if I'm watching a TV show or if I'm watching a video, it should be good enough that I am not doing any simultaneous scrolling. If I'm feeling the urge to do simultaneous scrolling, I need to go do something else, because then it's like not good enough to spend my time watching. Anyways, long story short, the point is that Star Trek, 90 Star Trek, even episodes that I've seen before, are good enough or entertaining enough that I just want to watch them and not do anything else at the same time. And it's so cozy, and it's so nice, and I love it. So I've been doing that. I went to Wicked with some friends, which was quite funny. I was not one of the musicals kids as a teenager. My friends were, and I read the book and was horrified. Apparently, yeah, and now I've seen some YouTube videos. I was not the only one who had this experience. All my friends are obsessed with this musical, and I'm like, whatever about musicals. Oh, there's a book, I'll read the book, and then you're traumatized. Anyway, I went to Nosferatu with some friends as well, and was frankly completely unimpressed. You guys, just because it has Defoe in it does not make it a cinematic masterpiece. It was like, yeah, I felt nothing for that movie. I did kind of like how creepy the parts where Thomas is in the vampire's castle were, and he's kind of like, is this guy actually this creepy or am I imagining things? That was pretty good. Other than that, I was like, I mean, yeah, William Dafoe does not a cinematic masterpiece make. Quit telling me, oh, it's based on the first vampire movie. I freaking know that. That doesn't mean it's a good movie. Anyway, yeah, so Nosferatu, Wicked, and I'm gonna go watch Conclave with my boyfriend at some point. Although, now that I think about it, we were supposed to do that this weekend, and I think we just completely forgot about it. Crap. Okay, well, so I don't know if I will manage to watch Conclave this month, but it's on my list. One of my friends was like, oh, I heard it was so boring, Ellie. And I was like, girl, I know it's boring. I read the book and I was really entertained by the book. So, but obviously that's probably not a necessary one to see on the big screen. So, yeah. And then at home, because I watched Wicked, then I was like, oh, I should watch Sound of Music. And because I watched Sound of Music, then I was like, oh, didn't Julie Andrews do the first version of Roger and Hammerstein's Cinderella? And so I watched that. It's like black and white. It's on YouTube, the full movie. And then I was like, you know what? This is the one case where I think the remake actually really improved on it, because in my childhood, I had a VHS of the 90s Roger and Hammerstein Cinderella, like with Whitney Houston and Brandy as Cinderella, blah, blah, blah. And it's so good, you guys. It's so good. Like, they added some really good songs and stuff like that. So when people ask me about musicals, I really shouldn't be like, I don't really know anything about musicals, because I freaking love that musical. Anyway, so I watched that, and then it was really funny. Like, man, Whoopi Goldberg was in everything, wearing jewel tones and crazy hats. Because obviously she's the queen in Roger and Hammerstein's Cinderella, and then it just so happened that so many of the Next Gen episodes I was watching had Whoopi Goldberg in them. So yeah, I think my list for the rest of this month, I will probably be reading these physical books. I will be reading, maybe I will go and get The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, because like I said, I know it's at the library within walking distance of me. And I will try to watch Conclave, and I will keep watching Star Trek. I have kind of gone like, oh my god, I know I shouldn't go on Reddit, but sometimes I find a thread like, what was your favorite mid Star Trek episode? And like ones that are not on the top 10 list but are still really enjoyable, and those are usually my favorites. So those are the ones like Clues, where they have to figure out why some evidence is that more time has passed than they think that has, or Catwalk on Enterprise, where they are in some sort of ionic storm or whatever, and they have to make do with living in the Jeffries tubes type of thing. This sort of contained, they have to solve a problem on the ship and they're all there together interacting with each other. That's the type of episode I like most. And that's the type of episode that I was reminded of a bunch of through this thread. So I've been watching those. And then I had the thought again, as I periodically do, well, I have seen all of Star Trek Enterprise, the one from the early 2000s. I should try and watch that one again. And then I try and watch it again, and I'm like, man, this is bad. This is just like, it's not good TV. It's not good. But I am kind of skipping around in it and like thinking, oh, this one sounds interesting, I'll watch this one. And then it's often ones that I've seen before, like the one where there's some non-corporeal aliens who are like studying them, how they react to some disease or whatever. And I'm like, I've definitely watched this one before. But some of them are so bad. And I'm like, how is it that we can be cheesier and worse in a worse way in the early 2000s than we were in like the 90s? Obviously, some of the 90s Trek has aged badly, but a lot of this early 2000s Trek has also aged badly. So I don't know if I'm going to keep suffering through that or if I am just going to go back to TNG. But yeah. Oh, and the other thing I've watched is Severance, So Severance season 2 has been coming out, and I have been watching that, and that is one of the only TV shows that has come out in recent years that I have actually been excited about since, yeah, Dairy Girls. It's like, what TV shows do you like, Allison? It's like uh Star Trek in the 80s and 90s, and then I did enjoy 30 Rock, and then I liked Dairy Girls, and then I like Severance, and that's kind of it as far as TV shows that I will watch. Anyway, this was super long, but yeah,